Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. You know, we're going to talk about all this stuff going on in Michigan. It's been quite a crazy roller coaster ride this year to start out 2019. And you know, we're gonna talk about the dispensary closures and the decision to allow the ones that were closed to reopen, and the supply chain of caregivers to be allowed again to to supply the dispensaries with product. But we're going to start here with this study that came out in Michigan. This is a Michigan-based study, and it's a Michigan newspaper or whatever news outfit. That's actually my local news, I think, WXYZ. Actually, that's Detroit. But anyway, so this here is a story about this poll, or this study actually. It's not a poll, it's a study. People in Michigan were involved in this study. In fact, 450 adults who identified as current cannabis users, the majority reported using marijuana to help treat a medical or health condition. Users rated marijuana better than pharmaceutical drugs on effectiveness, side effects, availability, and cost. We'll get into that availability in a minute. So anyway, many people will likely use medical marijuana as a supplement to or substitution for prescription drugs, according to the University of Michigan study. The study by Daniel Kruger of the U of M Institute on Social Research found that 44% of medical cannabis users stopped taking a pharmaceutical drug or use less of one, or both, in favor of cannabis. The study found that in general, people use medical marijuana to treat pain, back problems, depression, and headaches. Nearly a third of the study's participants said their mainstream healthcare provider did not know they used medical cannabis, indicating gaps between the two treatment systems. Researchers surveyed 450 adults who identified as current cannabis users. The majority reported using marijuana to help treat a medical or health condition. Users rated marijuana better than pharmaceutical drugs on effectiveness, side effects, availability, and cost. Quote, this study advances knowledge in the evidence-based approach to harm reduction and benefit promotion regarding medical cannabis, said Daniel Kruger, a member of the U of M Institute for Healthcare Policy and Innovation. Quote, given the growing use of cannabis for medical purposes and widespread use for recreational purposes despite criminalization, the current public health framework focusing primarily on cannabis abstinence appears obsolete. Couldn't have said it better myself. My name's Brando, and I'm the Weed Commando. And in Michigan, where I live, we have a situation going on, and it started on a couple weeks ago. And well, let's just hear it from them. Hold on. All right, let me make sure we get this. Yeah, alright, I can check my levels in a second. So, what we have is a situation like this going on in Michigan.
Tonight, dozens of medical marijuana facilities have been closed. The state issued a deadline for the businesses to get a license. Many dispensaries say it's not right, and they should have received their license from the state months ago. 7 Action News reporter Alan Campbell live in Wayne tonight with what's next for the dispensaries and their clients. Alan?
Well, Dave, more than 24 medical marijuana dispensaries within Metro Detroit have shut down, like this one here in Wayne, Holistic Health Wayne, after the state licensing board denied their state license. Now, all they can do is wait and hope their license is eventually approved.
If you're going to open any of them, this is the place that needs to be opened, right here.
More than 70 unlicensed state medical marijuana dispensaries are shut down as of December 31st.
Those dispensaries that have been operating under that temporary authorization have to get a state license in order to continue to to distribute marijuana.
The temporary operators have been given approval from the cities they're established in, however, are still waiting on state approval.
The applications still haven't come up yet at the Marijuana Licensing Board, and others have been simply denied.
Patients who visit their regular dispensary are now left looking for answers.
Real quick, I just wanted to mention that, you know, I've done several videos about this topic as it was happening, and one of the reoccurring themes that I think I espouse in my videos about this is that, quite frankly, this is LARA's fault, the Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Office in Lansing. This is their fault, and I don't know if it's because they're purposely like backlogging people that they don't want to have opened, or like the gentleman just said, Barton, they straight up denied some of these applications. And what happens is there was a deadline for applications if you already had your application in. Now, I don't know if these people they get like a refund of half of their application fee and have to reapply and do a whole nother application fee. I'm not sure how that works. But let me tell you this, if that's how it works, that's complete bullshit. And like the lady said just a minute ago, oh, this is if any dispensary should get a license, this is the one. And the problem all over the state that I keep hearing about is the ones that aren't getting licenses are the ones that should. People that are actually doing real medical marijuana work, helping sick people whenever they can, and you know, obviously they represent competition to somebody else that is in the licensing process or already has a license and has inside connections. So we're talking about people that have dispensaries that already existed before the 2016 licensing laws were even passed. So anyway, back to the video.
I'm forced to find meds elsewhere, an undesirable, probably not a safe location.
I thought we were all set when we did this voting, and apparently not. I don't understand it.
Some fear patients will resort to other ways to get their medical marijuana.
Probably have to revert to the black market or to the caregiver system.
Now, medical marijuana dispensaries that serve thousands of clients are in the dark, waiting for the marijuana board to give them the green light, while patients take the risk of going somewhere else. Somewhere they're not sure of.
There's so many cancer patients that come here for Rick Simpson oil, and now they have nowhere to go. So there's actually people that are dying that have nowhere to go for their medication.
Temporary medical marijuana dispensaries had to apply for a state license back on February 15th, 2018. But after speaking with some dispensary folks tonight, they say that because they're forced to shut down, they're losing anywhere from hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions because they had to close their doors. Some even saying this is simply a big mess. Reporting live in Wayne, I'm Alan Campbell, Action News.
We'll continue to follow it, Alan. Thank you.
So yeah. that was the situation. I'm gonna leave a link to this in the description. This here is a map of all the current licensed dispensaries, and this map is provided by the people that, you know, have the licenses. They've been doing a lot of work lately. LARA also put out a list of more people that opted out of the Medical Marijuana Licensing Facilities Act. So there's more towns that outright said, oh, we don't want to have dispensaries in our town. And I'll never understand why. There's absolutely nothing, you know, to me it seems like there's somebody on the inside of these municipalities that might know somebody in Lansing, and you either do or don't want to get a license. I don't know, man. This is just everything that's happening is really weird around these licenses. That's all I'm going to say right now, though. The story gets better in the end, and we'll see what goes on in the future. But in the meantime, there's a new thing going on since, of course, you heard the gentleman in the video just now. He said, you know, I thought we voted in November and we settled all this. well, that's, I don't know if he's a medical marijuana patient or someone that's just seeking to buy marijuana in the, you can buy marijuana when you're 21 thing, but we're not going to see those stores until 2020 where you can buy marijuana at the store. And I'm sick of calling it marijuana. Sorry about that. We're going to call it weed from now on as much as we can. So anyway, you go to the dispensaries that were shut down, or you go to the ones that aren't shut down. My experience lately is none of them's even had any weed, because there's a special rule that said that caregivers were allowed to still supply weed to these dispensaries legally. And on that rule, or that expired. I think you were allowed to do that until January 1st. And then after that, caregivers that had extra weed, they were only allowed to sell stuff to provisioning centers and growers. Licensed provisioning centers and licensed growers. Somebody in the mix had to get that stuff tested. I'm assuming that would fall on the grower. Now, the reason I don't know about any of this shit, like exactly how it goes, is because I don't do any of this. I don't sell stuff to the dispensaries or anything like that. But I'll tell you this. It seems like there's a huge gap in supply because of this. Because in my opinion, in my assessment, or it seems like in my experience, it's because a caregiver that's used to normally going to a dispensary to sell their overage, their extra medical marijuana, they don't know these people that have licensed facility dispensaries or grow facilities or processing centers. They just don't work with those people. They don't have a business, you know, an existing business relationship with any of them. And to be quite honest, I wouldn't know the first thing about where to go to find any of these people to try to sell any of my overage. So I wouldn't have any idea what to do about it. But what people have been doing for a long time is this creative way of still getting somebody the product that you have without actually selling them like it's a drug deal. So you basically sell somebody a piece of artwork or whatever and then give them some free weed with it. And this has been codified as legal under the new law. The Detroit News did a roundup on some of the businesses that offer a free gift with purchase of some other goods, and like t-shirts or artwork or whatever, you know. And basically, you know, you're buying weed, all right? But anyway, these places that are in here are just to, this was an old article. This is already 2 weeks old almost. It's January 3rd. Since then, and since this dispensary closure, there's been an explosion of parties and businesses that just popped up on the side of the road that are like, hey, you know, we have raffles where you can win clones and stuff, and all kinds of things. So it's basically like, you know, creative marketing. A whole new market is opening up all around us. So just to let you know that there's that. And then here's another list, and I'm going to leave links to all, I'm going to leave all these articles linked in the description because this is kind of cool. It's good little resources. But here's a list of all the dispensaries in Detroit that survived the crackdown on January 1st. Now, granted, the ones that did get shut down are more than likely going to be able to open back up because, as you're going to find out in a minute, everybody freaked out. We all shouted out to the new governor, Governor Whitmer, and she answered our call. So I commend her for that, because, you know, Rick Snyder would have never done anything like this. In fact, he took the most hands-off approach to the medical marijuana situation, I think, any governor, and I give him credit for that, but I also don't like him for that, because whereas he's a Republican, so if he would have had a hand in it, it probably would have been in a negative way. He probably would have done anything like a Chris Christie or a, you know, a Governor LePage. I don't know if it would have been that bad, but he doesn't seem like that kind of person. He's more nuanced about his arguments, so I don't think he would be like Reefer Madness style, but he just took a hands-off approach. His attorney general was kind of an axe man, but even he didn't do anything to really hurt the medical marijuana program. The people that hurt the medical marijuana program wear suits and ties and hang out with lobbyists all day, and they work in that fancy building in downtown Lansing. The politicians, all right, they're on both sides of the aisle, and they were in that state house throwing a huge wrench into the supply chain of medical marijuana. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to disrupt the market. And then when you have chaos like that, you come in with people with big money and heavy regulation, and you crush whatever's left of the small people. And then you have big monopolies that your friends run, and from there, who knows what else happens. But one of the things in the early stages of that is this bumpy road where, you know, people are getting ran over, quite frankly. And I don't know, this is one way to look at it. But here's a list of the people that, even after whatever happens next, if LARA don't get their shit together, and I don't understand what's taking LARA so long to get their shit together. They were already sitting on multiple, you know, we're talking like $30 or more million before all this even happened. And now they raked in since they started taking in application fees early last year, or actually it was late the year before when they first started taking the application fees. And since then, I'm pretty sure they've amassed another pretty nice stack of millions of dollars from people that had to pay, you know, the $6,000 application fee, or once you get that approved, then next thing you know it, you have to pay the $50,000. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's $54,000 or maybe it's $48,000 assessment fee. And this is on top of the local licensing fees and whatever else you had to pay there. Plus, don't worry, you have to pay taxes quarterly before they're even due. For most people, the regulations are ridiculous, and I don't know. It's gonna be weird, but if whatever happens, if LARA gets to these other applicants and finally approves their application and lets them have their license, then this list might be a little bit bigger. But right now, after all this stuff, the storm is over, whoever's going to be sitting there without a license still, they're still going to have to do something. I don't know. You know, I don't see the end of this. This thing is this tit for tat is not going to end until either A, they just go ahead and let these existing dispensaries get a license and stop bullshitting around, or B, they also do what I've always wanted to see happen, is have an avenue for caregivers that want to participate in the system to, you know, take their overage in. That, to say that that's not that big of a deal is, you know, I guess you can't say that, because these people that are running the license schemes, they don't want that. Obviously, that's the death of 1,000 cuts competition, and they don't want that. They don't want to bleed like that. They want to have the market pie pretty much all to themselves. And it's, you know, I mean, for God's sakes, those crooks in Lansing passed a fucking law so patients have to pay taxes from the medicine that they get from their caregiver. Are you kidding me? So it's really messed up, man, what's going on with the licensing for this. And I mean, you know, like, I'm screaming, we need to repeal it. We need to repeal the MMFLA, And if we got a governor and an attorney general that's on our side, let's push them a little bit harder towards that. You know, you could say repeal and replace it if you want. I don't know. You know, I think we should look at a system that looks like what we already had. Legalize what we already had going on. Make it so people can come out of the shadows that way. I mean, you have little small-time caregivers that do some of the best work that there is. And on top of all the crazy shit that's going on with this licensing and people getting shut down, and, you know, I'm going to say now they're going to tell them that they can open back up, and you'll see the end result of this. But let's see. We had a bunch of products recalled all across the state. And basically, we had Lansing, Kalamazoo. I've heard other places had recalls. So product is getting... I don't know. It's just a mess, guys. I don't know what else to really say about it. I'm seriously doubting that you're going to find this much contaminated product from, you know, the caregivers that were supplying these people before. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know exactly the details of this and who supplied the cannabis. But I mean, you know, you shouldn't have your stuff on the shelf if it didn't pass the lab, all right? And we're talking about stuff that came up with chemical residue, biotolerant gram-negative bacteria, E. coli, salmonella, and total coliforms. So, you know, E. coli, salmonella, I'm sure it's not the kind of levels that's going to make you literally puke and be sick for days or whatever. We're talking about microscopic amounts of stuff in small amounts of marijuana products. But at the same time, that's nothing that you want in your medical marijuana, guys. It's absolutely appalling. They're finding all kinds of yeast and mold, chemical residue, which is sad because I've always grown organically, and to this day I do not understand why people use chemicals to fertilize or to, you know, control bugs or mold. It's a horrible way to go, man. And it's not medical marijuana. If you have those kind of things inside your cannabis products, that is not medical marijuana. Not by anyone's definition that I know of. And again, more of this. One more. Free marijuana with art purchase expands to Ann Arbor. It's pretty much okay. And this one's on High Road, which is a DC based business, and they've been around here for, you know, since after as soon as the law passed. I think they were probably like, they already had roots in. But bottom line is, it shouldn't be too hard to find stuff if you look out there. And I'll leave links to all this. You can go to highroad.com. It's on highroad.com, all one word, and check out what they got, or how you get there, or what you can do. Order a product and then get it delivered with marijuana. And this is Virginia native Brandon Williams, who began this venture in 2017 and expanded to Boston, Detroit, and now the city known for the Hash Bash, an annual event centered around marijuana. So yeah, customers can purchase products from $55 to $150 and choose from a free muffin, cookie, sour candy, hot fries, and more, along with marijuana, but no more than 2.5 ounces, the limit under Michigan law. The snacks do not contain marijuana. Rather, they are an addition to enjoy with the art and cannabis. Demand is pretty good, Williams said. We're doing pre-orders for next week. We got slammed with orders because the demand is extremely high. I'm actually hiring more drivers for the Ann Arbor area. So there you go. You don't even got to leave your house. But nonetheless, we have these dispensaries where people rely on, and it should be a reliable system. It was for a decade. It was a reliable system. But 2 years ago, which is about 8 years into that decade, they finally passed this ridiculous set of regulations. It's like a book. And the whole thing is just designed to crush the small businesses, criminalize growers that sell weed even more, and quite frankly regulate everybody out of the business so that their rich friends could take over. And if you see my videos, I even went a little farther and showed you the lobbyists and who they were. Turns out it was the Republican lobbyists known as Responsibility Council of Michigan that were mostly behind the corporate takeover and still are. I don't know if any of them got a license or some of their friends are getting licenses or how that works, but man, they sure wanted to crush the people that have been growing weed their whole lives. They sure wanted to, and they still want to, criminalize us, put us out of business, kick our door in, do forfeiture. And that's another good story coming out of Michigan, coming out of Lansing, is there's a big push right now to reform the forfeiture laws in Michigan. And I will be doing an update on that very soon. It's a story I've been following for a couple years, and it's probably the biggest driving factor of marijuana busts or grow house busts, dispensary raids. Every time they raid the dispensary, they raid the house at the same exact time, and they clean up. It's like a vacuum cleaner. They just suck up everything, and then they tell you to go to court and fight for it to get it back. So anyway, here's the good news. Amid Michigan medical marijuana shortage, state considers reopening shops. And bummer. You know what? I'm gonna have to edit that and come back. But anyway, LARA did do this. Medical marijuana shops forced to close their doors on January 1st may be able to reopen temporarily as Michigan officials respond to a medical marijuana shortage. Wednesday, the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board will consider a resolution put forward by regulators to allow 72 unsolicited provisioning centers to reopen and for licensed facilities to buy medical marijuana from caregivers without the fear of retribution. We have heard from Michiganders closely affected by the ongoing transition to licensed marijuana facilities, said Governor Gretchen Whitmer in a statement. It is important that we ensure that patients have access to their medicine while the medical marijuana industry continues to develop. That's true. And the way LARA was doing it was basically, like I said, I don't know if there was a gatekeeper in there basically saying, oh, this is who we don't want to have licenses, so we'll just drag our heels until they give up. You know, I think everybody that put a license in should just get a license. This whole idea that you got to jump through a million hoops, come on. I mean, the licensing process itself is the most arduous part about it. All right, back to the article. The announcement comes as medical marijuana patients are struggling to find their medicine this month as the industry faces its first true test. So people were calling Lansing and trying to let Whitmer and the Attorney General Dana Nessel know that this is a huge problem. And this is a phone call to Cannabis. They said, we are unable to find licensed products for our patients, the voice message said, urging patients to contact their state representatives, Governor Whitmer, or the Bureau of Marijuana Regulation. And like I said, I went around to look at who had what, And there was only one place that had stuff that was a licensed facility that had a license too. Even they were out of shit. And they were all talking about, well, you know, come back on this date. And some of the dates that I've seen was like, come back in March. Like they weren't expecting to have any product until March. So maybe that changed. I don't know. People are mad. Patient access is at an all-time low. I don't go to Facebook very often, but on Facebook I have hundreds and hundreds of friends from Michigan, and they all have been criticizing and bitching about what's going on. And I have people from all over the state, and I see that what they're talking about everywhere. It's the same thing. Nobody is happy about this. Back to the article. Monday, some of the cannabis advocacy groups behind the marijuana legalization in Michigan sent a letter to Governor Whitmer and Attorney General Nessel urging them to take action to address the crisis for patient access. The letter urges Whitmer to extend emergency rules to allow provisioning centers to remain open until they receive a license and to allow them to continue to purchase marijuana from caregivers. Bingo. Now, from what I understand, I read the LARA response, and they're going to allow caregivers to do this legal transaction to licensed facilities or facilities that are waiting for a license through until March 1st. So they're one more month, you know. And at the time, like I said earlier, where the caregivers were only supposed to be allowed to take their extra product to growers, licensed growers, and licensed processors, which doesn't make sense. You know, why would I take a bunch of bud or even clones or any of that stuff to a processor or a grower? They should have their own shit together. A caregiver shouldn't have to be able to worry about. A caregiver should be able to go to a provisioning center. You know, period. What's the problem? We've been going there, you know, for 8 years. All of a sudden you want this different thing to happen. And so now it's been 10 years, and it's 11 now that caregivers were able to go and sell their overage to dispensaries. Why change it now? So we need to make that a permanent rule. I don't know what the holdup is. As of January 15th, there are 50 medical marijuana provisioning centers in Michigan. For the newly licensed shops, finding marijuana to buy is a problem. So this is owner Steve Roberts of Aim High Meds in Tecumseh. This is a brand new dispensary. Provisioning center is what the legal term is. He can buy reasonably priced product, which you can't get, and he don't think it'll be around till April. Quote, the product that we have found, they're taking bids on February product. It's twice the price of anything going on in the black market. Roberts said of growers, for a few of them that have product, they're doing it on a list. So if you don't already have that connection built in, that relationship, you're going to have issues. And Rick Thompson, again, a board member of Michigan Normal and My Legalize, said medical marijuana from licensed growers have been more expensive and of lesser quality than what caregivers have been growing. And that's what I've been saying all along. And that's why I can't say for sure because I don't know the exact details. But all that weed that was just recalled is probably weed that came from those provisioning centers. I'm pretty sure that most caregivers don't use chemicals and don't end up with E. coli in their weed. But maybe I'm wrong. But Rick Thompson says the supply chain is certainly broken. And that, like I said, that was their goal all along. Their goal was to throw a huge wrench into the supply chain, and then after in the chaos, go back and crush everybody else with regulations and high fees. And if you could survive that, then they're dragging their feet on your application. And then at the end of the day, you might even get denied by the 5-member bureaucratic board that's appointed to do the final thumbs up or down. It's bullshit. Back to Thompson's quote, it's limited in 2 aspects. limited in selection and limited in quality or quantity. My bad. Anyway, for patients who are used to a broad assortment of different solutions for their ailments, to be reduced to a few choices, it means many people have had their treatments interrupted. And that's kind of like you heard that lady earlier talking about, hey, people need their medicine. There's people that take RSO for cancer, and you know, all of a sudden now their tumors are growing back. People are dying. Here's someone talking about Southwest Michigan has no medicine available. Now, if you remember, Southwest Michigan is like the Bible Belt. And it sucks because they probably didn't have much before that. Anyway, to bridge the gap in patient access, Thompson said it was critical for caregivers to continue to have a role in supplying licensed medical marijuana provisioning centers. And I agree, and that's, like I said, that's been my stumping point for the last 5 years, you know. Actually, I've been talking about this since 2012, but I didn't have a channel, and I only had a channel for like the last 2.5 years or whatever. But before that, for a couple years before that, I had a huge following on Facebook, doing strong meds, talking about these same stories there. But you know, here I am talking about the same shit, that caregivers are worthy of propping up these dispensaries. And we don't care if you have these giant weed factories cranking out weed too. We don't care. We're happy to share the space. What we do care about is when they come in here and they try to crush us. And they're talking about churn in your caregiver card and come work at the weed factory for $10 an hour. That's what we don't fucking care about. We don't care about that shit. Caregivers care about making good products and obviously their patients. And I've met quite a few caregivers in my day, and I have to say that most of the caregivers I've met care about their patients more than, you know, some guy running a weed factory cares about patients. All they care about is that their product gets to the market and sells for whatever competitive with black market prices that they can get. And right now the competition for their product is so high, like that guy said down below, is they're going, you know, almost double black market prices for bulk. So if you're talking about you can go to the black market and dig up a pound for $2 grand, well, you know, these weed factories want $4 grand, so you're going to end up selling $20 grams out the door, and that's before taxes. So who knows? Who knows how this works? But right now it's a really bumpy, rocky road, and nobody's really happy about it. But basically all these emergency rules that keep happening are to kind of prop up this whole system that's already been there. It's to extend it because they know that works. They're like, hey, you know what? If patient access is a problem, we just go back to the old way that we've been doing it. But either way, if you're looking for something out there, you will be able to find it. Finally, to end this video, I'm going to give you this Michigan Radio NPR article that I just stumbled across. Basically, Steve Carmody lays out what LARA recommends to the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board, that they adopt a resolution that makes it clear that disciplinary action will not be taken against an applicant in the following circumstances. And this is for somebody applying for a license. This is important for those people that are applying for licenses or whatever. Temporary operating facilities. If you're still operating a facility, the existing dispensaries or whatever, the applicant's proposed facility is written is within a municipality that had an authorizing ordinance in place by December 15th, 2017. The applicant applied for a license no later than February 15th, 2018, and the applicant notifies the department within 1 business day of becoming aware of any adverse reaction to a marijuana product sold or transferred. Anyway, that's the one that puts the dagger in the back of anybody that had a pre-existing dispensary. So if you're a licensed provisioning center, the board will not take disciplinary action against a licensing provisioning center for purchasing marijuana products from either a registered primary caregiver through March 31st, 2019. So I was wrong earlier. You can do it if you're a caregiver. You can sell this to licensed provisioning centers all the way through March 31st. So far. But you could also purchase that from temporary operating facility as long as the licensee does all the following: obtain signed patient consent or prior to selling any marijuana products that have not been tested in full compliance with the law and administrative rules, enter all inventory into a statewide monitoring system immediately upon receipt from a caregiver or from a temporary operating facility, verify and confirm before any sale or transfer with government issued photo ID and a statewide monitoring system that customer holds a valid registry identification card, enter all sales in the statewide monitoring system and determine sales will not exceed daily purchasing limits, notify LARA within 1 business day of becoming aware of any adverse reaction to any marijuana products sold or transferred. And if you're a licensed grower or processor, through March 31st as well, the board will not take disciplinary action against licensed grower or processor for purchasing marijuana products from either a registered primary caregiver or from temporary operating facility as long as the licensee does all of the following. And it's again, enter marijuana products in the inventory in the statewide monitoring system immediately upon receipt, tag or package all inventory that has been identified in the statewide monitoring system, only transfer marijuana products that have been tested in full compliance with the law and administrative rules, notify LARA within 1 business day of any adverse reaction, blah, blah, blah. So basically, the ball is in the court of the Medical Marijuana Licensing Board, and it looks, I don't see why anything would happen to derail these recommendations and allow this deadline to be extended to March 31st, which is essentially what's going on here. This is a deadline that has been lingering since December, actually since October. I think it was a September. Yeah, it was a September 15th deadline in 2017. And it's time and time again, we've had this situation where the deadline has came and went, and people were, you know, in a state of basically shock and awe, like, am I going to be arrested? Are they going to, like, not give me a license later because I stayed open even though I shouldn't have been open, but they didn't get to me yet? And that's the big problem. This is all Laura's fault for not getting to these people and not reviewing their license, their application properly or on time, and not inspecting their facilities. And it's all falling on them. And to me, they have to do whatever makes sense to the people that are waiting to get a license. And it's the only fair thing it's the only fair way to go forward on this. All right, so that's all I got on this. Sorry I took so much time to tell you all the details of it, but I knew this was coming to this. And that's why I haven't done any clips about this on the way to this moment, because I knew it was going to culminate into this new deadline bump. But this is pretty solid information, and the fact that basically as a caregiver, I'm now allowed until March 31st to sell directly to the dispensary, which was a problem about a week ago when I was at a dispensary and they didn't have any product, and I said, well, you know, what about if I sold you product? And I didn't have any at the time, but I just was curious because I was there doing kind of research. And he said, no, you can only, right at this time, you could only sell it to the processor or the grower. And when that happens, you have to enter it into the statewide system after you get it tested at the lab. So it would have been a lot of work. But you can do that until March 31st now. And that's all I got. Like I said, tune in for more clips coming soon. Will be the January summary clip that I do every year, because January is like the hope and dream month, where they talk about all the things that they want to do all over the country when it comes to marijuana. And as we've seen with New Jersey, it's pretty easy for them to drag their heels all year on any kind of legislation actually getting done. So whenever you're leaving this marijuana legalization thing up to legislators, it's going to be a disaster. And I will have a lot of stories about that in the January update, which so far consists of about 40 stories. Wow, it's going to be a long clip. So see you then, or maybe even before then, depending on anything else happening. But enjoy, and if you could, just go find one of those parties, or go find one of these companies that'll gift you the cannabis. The links will be in the description to all these articles. And have a good one, guys.